Thomas, a 37-year-old surgeon, was raising little Willow all by himself. The girl, who was 6, was gearing up to start first grade in the fall. Though not his biological daughter, this fact held no weight for Thomas. Adopting Willow had been a deliberate choice, one he had never once regretted over the past 6 years. She was the center of his universe, especially since his own personal life had hit rough waters for quite some time. Thomas and his wife, Madison, had dreamed of a long and blissful future together, but they struggled to conceive for several years. They never deeply investigated the cause of their infertility or pointed fingers at each other. Instead, they cherished their years of love and understanding. When the opportunity to adopt Willow came along, they embraced it with open hearts, welcoming her into their lives when she was just a few days old. Unfortunately, their domestic bliss was short-lived. Madison could never fully relish motherhood. A tragic car accident claimed her life 5 years ago. She had only 1 year to delight in her adopted daughter, cradling her, soothing her to sleep, and taking her on strolls. The gentle caress of her mother's hands was something little Willow would no longer experience. Accepting Madison's death was an immense struggle for Thomas. At first, he was in denial, unable to fathom that he was now a single parent to a young daughter, and that his beloved Madison had perished so tragically and prematurely. Thomas had believed their hardships were behind them and had been making grand plans for the future, but everything disintegrated in that devastating instant. They had been saving diligently to buy a new spacious house, keeping their savings securely in a bank deposit box. Madison had even mentioned that perhaps someday they could adopt another child from an orphanage. Those words had filled Thomas with joy, but now all he had left were her photos, her clothes hanging in the closet, and her voice messages on his phone. On that fateful day, Madison had gone to the bank to withdraw their savings but never returned. The couple had already picked out a house and were on the verge of making the purchase and moving in. Thomas's demanding job at the clinic meant he couldn't take time off during the day, so Madison took care of most of the errands. But in a tragic twist of fate, Madison's car veered off the road, overturned, and caught fire, destroying both her and the significant sum of money she had just withdrawn. The loss of their savings didn't even register with Thomas at that moment. The thought of purchasing a new house was irrelevant. His entire world had shattered. He could always save up money again, but nothing could bring back Madison. Thomas has led a thriving surgical practice at a renowned private clinic for many years, earning recognition as an exceptional surgeon capable of handling even the most difficult cases. His solid salary allowed him to save a significant amount each month for the construction of a dream house, which he dreamed of building together with Madison and Willow. However, fate decreed otherwise. Thomas devoted all his love to raising Willow, coping alone for 5 years. Given his busy schedule, he sought help from an elderly nanny, Mrs. Jenkins, whom Willow adored and never bothered when her father was at work. That was the rhythm of their little family's life. At the clinic, Thomas was highly respected by both the administration and colleagues. Some colleagues jokingly predicted that he would rise to the position of chief physician. His surgical prowess was legendary throughout the region, attracting patients from remote towns and villages who turned to him for help in difficult situations that others considered hopeless. For 6 years, Thomas hadn't taken Willow on a real vacation with him. Recently, he decided to show her the sea and arrange a vacation at the resort. They both deserved a real vacation. Until now, he had not dared to leave the city in his job, but one morning Willow caught fire with an idea. "Dad, Mrs. Jenkins read me a book about pirates yesterday. Now I want to see the sea. She said it's always warm by the sea," she said, snuggling under Thomas's blanket after waking up. "Do you want to go to the sea?" Thomas asked. It was the middle of June, and many of his colleagues were going to the resorts. He couldn't remember the last time he'd taken a full vacation. Working at the clinic was a way for him to take his mind off his lonely life. Next month we will definitely go to the sea. I promise, my kitten." He kissed Willow on the top of her head and told her it was time for her to get up. By the end of the month, Willow was excited about the upcoming trip. When her babysitter found out about Thomas's plans, she praised his decision. "Willow is so lively and curious. She will be delighted with a vacation at the sea, and you need to rest too. Don't overdo it," Mrs. Jenkins advised. "I hadn't even thought about it," Thomas admitted, feeling a little awkward. "Now I'm looking forward to our vacation." The hotel room was booked, the suitcases were packed, and Thomas and Willow greeted the warm southern sun with joyful smiles. Willow was immediately captivated by the resort town. She quickly threw her backpack into the room and eagerly began to prepare for going to the beach. Thomas was immensely happy watching his joyful daughter and realized that they needed a change of scenery a long time ago. The sea was warm, and Willow was playing on the shore, and Thomas was sitting next to her and suggesting that they build a sandcastle together. After a short walk along the beach with the other children, which he allowed without taking his eyes off her, she returned and asked, "Dad, did you miss me?" "No, it's okay, honey. I just saw a woman who looks very much like the one in the photo by your bed," Willow said, pointing at her. Thomas was stunned. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Yes, Daddy. The photo is in a black frame. It's her." "You can't be sure of that," he said. "This can't be happening." But Willow's stubborn answer still didn't convince her father. Thomas couldn't believe it. The photo was of his late wife. He couldn't bring himself to tell his daughter about Madison and didn't know if he should. But Willow couldn't see her mother. She must have imagined it. However, Thomas stood up to see the woman with his own eyes. "Come on, I'll show you." Willow pulled her father's hand and pointed to a woman sunbathing on a nearby chaise longue. Thomas froze in place. It really was Madison, alive and well, with a beautiful tan long hair, just as he remembered. He always liked her long hair, but how was this possible? He couldn't believe the reality of what was happening. With difficulty, he forced himself out of his stupor and stopped staring at the bright and attractive Madison on the nearby chaise longue. Aaron, his former colleague, was lying next to her. Previously, this man had been filling in for Thomas at the clinic, but shortly before Madison's alleged death, he was fired for embezzlement of medicines and incorrect reporting. The drugs were dangerous, and Aaron was involved in illegal activities. He was not convicted, but was dismissed in disgrace. Thomas didn't even know where he could find a job after this incident. "Dad, are you all right?" Willow shook Thomas's hand, drawing his attention. "Is that her, Daddy?" "No, honey, it's not her. They are very similar, so I was surprised." "Don't worry," the man said, trying to control his voice. But he couldn't take his eyes off Madison and Aaron, who were undoubtedly real. He understood what it meant, but he didn't want to admit it. He was trying to find a hidden meaning by building theories. Thomas calmly left the beach with Willow, continuing to watch the couple from a safe distance so that they would not be noticed. "Dad, why are we hiding?" "We're playing hide and seek," Willow whispered, looking at her father with interest. "We're playing hide and seek. We'll be going soon. Give me a few minutes, okay? Then I'll play with you." "All right, Daddy," Willow agreed. Thomas managed to follow Madison and Aaron to their two-story house in the resort area. The house looked expensive and comfortable, and the man guessed for whose money it was bought. Reflecting on the brazen and inhuman deception of people he had trusted for many years, he was tempted several times to immediately break into their house and expose the villains. But he needed someone to look after Willow. The resort's administrator, a pleasant woman in her 50s, came to the rescue. "I can look after your girlfriend. Don't worry. I've been working here for many years, and many parents leave their children with me on urgent matters," she said with a smile. "How did you know that I needed to leave?" Thomas asked. "You look worried," she laughed. "Go on, don't worry about the girl." "Thank you very much, I owe you," Thomas replied. Leaving Willow in safe hands, Thomas headed for Madison's house. Inside, he was burning with righteous anger. Calming down a bit, he knocked on the door. Madison's beautiful face reflected fear and surprise. "How did you find me?" "Come in. I'll explain everything," she said, letting him in surprisingly easily, which made Thomas suspicious. They went into a spacious, tastefully furnished living room. "Sit down. I'll get you a coffee with 1 spoonful of sugar, the way you like it," Madison said with a soft smile and disappeared into the hallway. Thomas looked around, examining every detail of the interior. He saw a lot of pictures of Madison having Aaron. He wanted to smash them, destroy everything and make a scandal. Suddenly, he heard a noise behind him and turned around, thinking that Madison had returned. But it was Aaron with a rolling pin in his hands. Thomas dodged in time, and the blow landed on the back of the chair he was sitting on. "So you found us?" Aaron hissed. "I've been dreaming of seeing your face when you find out about this. The perfect surgeon with the perfect wife. As you can see, your marriage wasn't as perfect as you thought." He laughed, and Thomas' anger flared up with renewed vigor. He rushed at Aaron, not afraid to get hit. They started fighting when Madison ran into the room and started pulling Thomas from behind, trying to stop her ex-husband. At that moment, the police burst into the house. "Hands up! You're under arrest!" The police shouted. Madison screamed hysterically. "I don't regret anything. Thomas, I've never loved you. You were just a front for Aaron. He never cared about me. I did everything for you, you ungrateful fool," Thomas replied. "I've never felt this before, and Aaron is a great lover. Now you will share your fate with him," he said as they led the lovers away. Thomas no longer looked at Madison and Aaron. A criminal case was opened against them. It turned out that they had been in a relationship for a long time and had planned everything in advance. Madison sometimes visited Thomas at work and noticed the handsome Aaron. Her moral principles did not prevent her from having an affair while married. Thomas's plans for a long family life only got in the way, but the savings came in handy. 5 years ago, the lovers staged that terrible accident to steal money and disappear. Aaron used his connections to pull off a scam. Madison and her lover moved to a resort town and bought their dream home. She had never wanted children, so she was glad to avoid motherhood. They enjoyed their carefree lives until fate brought them face to face with Thomas again. After the trial, when Madison and Aaron received the punishment they deserved, Thomas was able to move on. He continued his beloved work at the clinic and raised Willow. The girl was delighted with the trip and dreamed of seeing the sea again. Her father promised that next summer they would go on vacation again, but to another city. Thomas had great love for his daughter and understood that he had everything he needed for life.